Strawberry Plains is located about 7 miles north of Holly Springs. We're on 2,600 acres. You know, just being in a place, you have that time down that driveway and you just slow down and maybe you're not answering your phone so quickly and then to take time and breathe. But there is a uniqueness and I don't know if you can put into words.
My name's Mitch. I do all the education and outreach here. Just came back to the area, to the state after about 10 years of being away, but got to the point where I recognized that a lot of my passions and my history even is something that needed to kind of coalesce back in the place that I came from. Also a place that's not very well understood, I think, from people outside of the state.
Strawberry Plains Audubon Center was donated by two sisters, Ruth Finley and Margaret Shackelford. They wanted to see this place be a sanctuary, and I think what they meant by that, it was that uniqueness. They wanted to honor nature and place. At the moment, we're in fall, knocking on the door of winter. Critters, are finding their winter spots.
Starting to get cold, so they're all sunning before they go hibernate. So this guy's really young. He's probably only a year, maybe a few years old.
And so, we're buckling down, getting the greenhouses, put away and the plants put away.
There's just this idea that, I even had growing up that nature's out there, nature's what you see on TV, nature's in Africa. We just walked 50 yards from this house and came across a baby copperhead and a baby box turtle. Part of it is stopping to understand these not only complex, but really beautiful relationships. Most of the things that we don't take the time to recognize or protect, once they're gone, it's irreversible, at least within our lifetimes. You just see how the land just slumps off like this. This is like a case in point example of the bad agricultural practices and the erosion it caused along all these creek beds. We base a lot of our land management decisions and conservation decisions on what our grandfathers or great-grandfathers did. We have, in a rapid time, changed old, ancient relationships between so many different aspects of our ecosystems to a degree that can't recuperate or repair itself in often one human's lifespan. Black bears used to be one of the most common mammals you would come across throughout Mississippi and a lot of the southeast. And you can see with these claw marks coming all the way up this American beach. Look, this is right here outside of Holly Springs. We can reclaim, some of these lost relics that are so representative of what makes our landscapes, home. It's our sense of place. Communities across the country, but particularly in the southeast, that are changing their identity of what makes them unique. It's starting to be recognized that why people are migrating to those areas is that they provide a sense of place that's something that I think has been lost on certainly my generation, but even my parents' generation. And so that's one of the big things that we're doing here is using, not just around the house, but the entire grounds as a demonstration site for what you can do as a homeowner at a university like the work we're doing in Oxford.
It's more than putting in plants, it's dealing with cultures and tying that into the community, tying it into wildlife corridors. The more public spaces that we have that show a landscape model that supports life, the more people are going to buy into it. And we're seeing that just now, it just seems like the dam is broke and it's happening.
So we're getting ready for our Hummingbird Festival, and part of the Hummingbird Festival is having a plant sale.
Our Hummingbird Festival takes place every September. It's always the weekend after Labor Day. And we have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of ruby-throated hummingbirds coming through here during migration.
This plantation was given to Audubon. It was the single largest gift that Audubon ever received. They discovered by putting a lot of native plants into this plantation that it became a major migratory route for ruby-throated hummingbirds. And it spawned the festival. Up to 8,000 people come to this over a 3-day period. It's the largest Audubon event in the country. And it really all started with proper landscaping of what used to be an antebellum home. "96% of our birds rear their young on insects, and when we have plants that don't make insects, we don't have breeding birds, and that includes hummingbirds. If you lose the breeding birds, you're losing all different kinds of biodiversities. So the plants that are in your yard are more than decorations. They're vital parts of our local ecosystem.
We use the magnetism of hummingbirds to invite an audience that may not visit nature centers. And then while they're here, we have amazing speakers on all aspects of nature. And so we need 150 volunteers every day for the 3-day festival. It really took off when we started inviting hummingbird study group.
It definitely has a 5 o'clock shadow. I've got.
So you get to see close up. They band the hummingbirds, put a teeny band on their ankle. And actually that process is scientific study.
She is little bitty.
And they take their weight measurement and check for body fat,
0.06.
because these birds are going to leave here and they're going to continue down to the coast and fly the non-stop flight across the Gulf of Mexico. And so they're hitting the feeders hard to get a lot of carbs. They're hitting the nectar source plants to double their weight so they can go across the Gulf of Mexico. Again, that connection that's made with this beautiful bird that graces our planet, and to have the opportunity to actually let one go, you know, it's just so light. It's the weight of 1 to 2 pennies. But it's just this tiny jewel. And older people to actually have that experience and then see that ageless vibrancy come through them again, and the magic, their eyes light up, and you just can't put it to words. You feel it.
Conservation can kind of get lost in the big picture sometimes, and it's just magical. It's so unique. It's so determined, and to see all the mechanics in the body, the little heartbeat.
And all of them just have to.
I think Strawberry Plains fills the niche of connecting people to the wild and connecting to the vibrancy of life. I want the visitor to have that connection, because that's going to be the catalyst for change.
One of the best reminders that many of our species are in trouble is the monarch butterfly, and there's only 3.6% of the monarchs left. What I'm talking about is going home, redesigning your landscape, getting more plants in your landscapes that will be part of your local food web. All the things we call weeds support 4,000 species of pollinators, most of our butterflies.
It's an empowering thing for the individual to go in and they can change their own landscape.
You know, the Hummingbird Festival is just a chapter in the larger story of what Strawberry Plains is. There's a human history and historical aspect here, whether it's the antebellum Davis house built in 1851 or the post-Civil War sharecropper cabins that exist on the property, close to 24 of them. At the time of when they put all this into cotton, and so they would clear all these fields, and then they would need places to get out of the sun. You know, that guy's probably well over 300 years old. Massive red oak just sitting out there in the middle of a field. They say, you know, people that were freed after the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, many of them, you know, couldn't find work or found, you know, freedom to be a lot more difficult than they envisioned it, and so they would come back to their original masters' properties as sharecroppers to come and work. Many of them, for understandable reasons, didn't want to stay in the same quarters that they were a slave under the roof. And so they would take apart these places where they lived and rebuild them, you know, of their own accord. You know, we only really talk about the antebellum past and the large mansion. All the stories are lost of those several generations of people and their day-to-day lives. You know, even in the 1970s, it was so far removed from having any historical value or anything. They just considered it another place to store your hay, you know. We often negate the possibility that we have inherent resources here within our communities that from an outside viewpoint may not be seen as something that has a value. It might be seen as even something that devalues our communities. But we know there was well over 100 slaves here in the 1850s, and there was a 10-year period where they were out here farming this land before they even built that house. And I'm that much more appreciative of the plants and the things and the animals that are here now, knowing what wasn't here 100 years ago, and knowing the terrible things that happened out here. Let's focus on the beauty of hummingbirds. You know, what makes those things so powerful is understanding where we've come from and how far we've come. So I think this kind of it's good to keep us aware of what we can do as humans, both to each other and to the land itself. That support system that sustains us, you know. On behalf of Strawberry Plains and our entire staff and volunteers, we're thrilled to have this here today. As I said, we're going to have a little bit of a procession over to the cemetery. Howard and Jamie are all going to be along those steps to help some of you if you need assistance getting up there. Today we're having an African libation ceremony. So this ridge basically runs along and above Sandy Creek, which is what we just crossed. And this area that's, you know, maybe 40 by 40 square meters is the historic slave and sharecropper cemetery. There are 3 tombstones here that we know of, but there's likely well over a dozen, possibly over 2 dozen burials that are here on this site. There isn't another Audubon center that has a cemetery with this type of history. It's unique for us too to be in Mississippi and have a place that's protected into perpetuity, because many of the ancestors of slaves and sharecroppers throughout the state don't have access to the burial grounds.
So today we're going to do a African.
All of nature is always included in our ceremonies.
From the grounds.
And as well to show respect and honor the people who are buried in that cemetery. Collectively, we remember them today. We imbibe life in them through remembering them.
I believe because of the sense of moving forward without forgetting the deep pains that have taken place here, that we can really provide an opportunity for discussions that otherwise may never be broached. And so there is a movement in Holly Springs with taking this opportunity and meeting it head on. As a nation that's entire wealth was basically built off the backs of slave labor, the only way we can get to the other side and move forward with some reconciliation is to put that out in the open.
One of the main formats that we use for moving toward racial healing is small group discussion. So that's
look at history and decide what are the true facts of history. Then when you decide that, then you know how to communicate, how to come together, and finally, how to change and heal.
I really do feel that this is the beginning of some powerful movements, not just in Holly Springs, not just in North Mississippi, but throughout the region. It's a shared effort to restore and enhance the biodiversity of these places, but also reinforce how we are all connected. All living things have an impact upon one another. I think every person that comes is obviously going to have a different experience, but they're also going to take away different things about this place, about what today meant, and what being either from Mississippi or living in Mississippi, what does it mean to you to be a part of this in relation to how you're going to move forward with your daily lives and the actions you take toward not just other humans, but toward all other living things.
After programs, it's also included in our Hummingbird boxes, since we have an outreach program that goes to the schools.
To me, the big change and conservation is successful is when we think holistically. We incorporate the needs of nature and everyone into our community designs, our landscape designs. And so I'm hoping that we can make that big change within our lifetime, within my lifetime would be my biggest hope.
Just seeing the Mississippi that I left, close to 10 years ago, and the Mississippi I've returned to, it's remarkable. And had I known that 10 years ago, I probably would feel a lot more guilty about leaving what I did.